Welcome in, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Tape. TJ Wengert with you, joined by a very special guest, my buddy Alex from Hail Mary Sports. And today we're going to run through our early 2026 cornerback rankings. I know you can't even call it way too early because now we're in the college football season. I'm bad at my job. Let me hear about it down below in the comment section. But Alex, man, good to have you on the show, man. I had you back on my own YouTube channel. I guess, God, it's crazy to say, I guess 2 years ago now. Doesn't feel like it. But nevertheless, good to have you here on Beyond the Tape. And man, I'm pumped up to talk about some corners with you.
Dude, corner's my favorite position. So obviously really glad that we get to have a little bit of fun. I haven't talked about corners since the first position group for summer scouting.
I've been waiting. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Was there a reason you started with corners?
My favorite one. It's like, let's just start off on a hot note, but yeah.
I love watching corners. And I love watching receivers. We were talking about that a little bit before we hit record. So I also do want to just put a hand up for anybody who's watch other draft analysts or like maybe you're trying to get into this space. It's good to self-scout. And I will say corners and receivers are definitely the two position groups where I tend to buy into these guys a little bit more. These are like my favorite groups to watch, just like you said. And in my top 100, I feel like I always have a few more corners than everyone else, maybe a receiver or two more. So self-scouting, I like all these guys. So real quick, let's go ahead and kick things off with my cornerback number 12. And that's going to be Chandler Rivers. Now I will say honorable mention to Jeremiah Matthews Jr. If I was one game scouting with the way he looked this past weekend, we are now past, week one of the college football season. He looked damn good, man. Like I really liked, and I thought on a small sample size, he was probably my favorite of the Ohio State corners. Now we're going to talk about the other one later on today, but you go back to last year, 231 samples, coverage snaps, not a big enough sample size for me. Dude, he looked good on Saturday. So I did want to put out a quick honorable mention for Jeremiah Matthews Jr. But getting on to Chandler Rivers here, man, this is just, he's not going to have insane traits. He's listed at 5'10" by Duke. That number's going to be closer to 5'8" if I had to guess. But this is just a guy I want on my football team. This is a tenacious, scrappy, super competitive cornerback that finds a way to kind of exceed all expectations, given he doesn't have elite top end speed, elite arm length, elite, anything like that. He's just, and I'm also like, again, hand up. I'm someone who values the nickel more than most. Going back to talk about my own YouTube channel, this is not supposed to be a pub piece for me, but I did a video a couple years ago about corner becoming the cornerstone, nickel corner becoming the cornerstone of an NFL defense. And I think you're starting to see where a lot more people are starting to say that may not be the cornerstone when you have a guy like Myles Garrett on your roster, but across the board, I think you're starting to see the importance of that position. So I think Rivers is going to be that slot corner type. And by the end of the year, I'll break these guys up outside corners and nickel corners. But for right now, they're just in one big bucket. And I think Chandler Rivers, he just brings, you're Steelers fan, Alex. So he's got some like Hilton to him. At least that's how I envision like his competitiveness and how that would translate to the slot. But let me hear your thoughts on Chandler Rivers. Again, not a guy with like elite measurables, but just hashtag good football player and a guy I want on my team.
Yeah, I mean, Chandler Rivers is in my top 20 for my corners. And I know that sounds crazy, but when you're grading 40 plus guys, it ends up being a big compliment. I mean, again, the size, not necessarily ideal. You are going to be probably pigeonholed more into that nickel role. But the thing I love about him the most is his IQ. The guy just knows how to process the field and he knows how to react very quickly, which when you're in the slot, you definitely need to react quickly because those are the quick timing plays. And then especially when you're supposed to be the guy helping at the edge, seal the edge, it is super duper important. So very much value that with Chandler Rivers. Was kind of excited or kind of surprised to see him not come out last year. But because Duke was pretty hot last year, especially versus a team like SMU. They gave us a run for our money, and we were in the playoff. But you know what? He's getting a lot of hype right now, and he deserves it.
Absolutely. Chandler Rivers, my CB12. Let's get on to my CB11, Dalen Everett. And there's a couple guys like this, but Dalen Everett to me just kind of like checks a lot of boxes. There's nothing that's necessarily elite or jumps off the page. Oh, that's the trait. Holy cow, watch out. But I think this is a rock solid man coverage corner. I almost think of him as like the B version of your number one corner. Another guy I'm really excited to talk about. Talk about a good week one. Holy smokes, folks. But anyways, Everett's almost kind of the B tier version of that, where good size, good speed, like what I see in man coverage. I think there's some work to be done in what he does with zone coverage. I think he gives up a lot of space there, and he gives some room for receivers to find soft spots. And we're, in a day and age where even the most man-heavy teams are playing zone more often than not. So that's definitely a bit of a work in progress. But I trust the Georgia coaching staff to get a little bit more out of him there. So we'll also I will say at the NFL level, I would expect coaching staffs to get a little bit more out of him from that standpoint. So I think rock solid across the board, solid ball production there. You see 3 ints, 3 PBUs. nothing special, but solid enough. He does get the benefit of that's always a good front seven in front of him. So there is something that you do want to take into account there. At least I do when looking at this Georgia team. But I think Dalen Everett, rock solid. I would take him somewhere probably late D2, honestly. Again, I like a lot of these guys. It just comes down to the right role, right? Like you're drafting Rivers to be that nickel playmaker. You're drafting him for his spiciness. If you're looking at Everett as like, hey, might have a starting job open in a year or two, and right now he's going to be my third outside corner, and he's going to rotate in, I love that for Everett right now. How do you see the player?
Yeah, I mean, you said it perfectly. Very well balanced. I have a little bit more faith in the zone coverage ability than I think you do, but I think we both agree he's a very physical player and has a very strong foundation. It's somebody who has a very low bust factor for that reason, but maybe not the ceiling that we might see him consistently on Sundays, but definitely somebody that if an injury happens, he's someone that is going to be Mr. Old Reliable. And whether that sticks to a practice squad or a 53, you can debate that, but regardless, he's going to stick around for a while.
And when you talk about the zone coverage, some of that's always tough because teams will have different drop principles, right? Like how far back are you willing to drop? Right. And also, again, going back to Georgia's pass rush, he might be willing to give up a little bit extra cushion and force a team to play underneath because, hey, if I don't give up a 60-yard bomb here, my pass rush they're going to make sure that doesn't happen. So it's always interesting. It varies team to team. So it's just one of those things where like how Georgia plays these corners is just so different than Illinois, Colorado, so on and so forth. So that could be a tough part of the process as well.
Well, funnily enough, if you think about it as well, Dalen's also had elite safety play. You think about KJ Bolden last year and Malachi Starks. I mean, two potential first rounds. So, I mean, definitely maybe feels a little bit more comfortable taking risks that we might perceive as something that's unnecessary, but maybe with that feels a bit better.
But I think if you're a man-heavy team or like a defense where you're maybe trying to work towards more man coverage, this is a guy that you would like to see added to your roster somewhere there late day two in my eyes. My quarterback 10, Malik Muhammad. And I feel like I'm maybe on an island here. Alex, maybe you're kind of in the same, kind of tier here with me with, maybe not same tier, but you got to see it the same way. There was a ton of hype going into the season for Malik Muhammad. And he was one of the guys where I think there's a good football player there. Don't get me wrong, but I watched the tape and I was like, I saw some mocks where he's going top 10, top half the first round. And I'm like, I guess I'm just not there with him. But to me, 6 foot, 188. And last year, he did not look 188. That's a nice listed weight for sure. I'd say closer to 180, maybe a smidge below that. And I thought this past Saturday, maybe he added a little bit to that frame, but still, I think 188 is a little generous. Would like to see him bulk up into that frame. He does come with, a big recruiting, background, former top 100 recruit. I think the arm length checks out. So that's not the concern. I think it's just building out that frame. Another plus I have here, solid the catch point. I think we even saw that a couple times on Saturday where he's going to be feisty and tenacious. And I thought he had one solid rep. I can't remember the time code off the top of my head. I haven't done the whole all 22 from this past weekend, but had one solid rep where he contested against Jeremiah Smith. And that's a much bigger body type. So it's good to see the willingness. And I think he has good short area burst. My thing with him is what's his 40? I'm kind of questioning what the long speed is. He looks like a good athlete. And for God's sakes, if you're 188, you better be able to fly, from that standpoint. But he's just someone that I felt like there were times in 2024 where guys would get behind him and I just didn't have an answer for why. And maybe it's just because, hey, we have a great pass rush and, there's a certain depth that I'm going to defend to. And if someone gets behind me and that pass rush didn't get home, so be it. But that doesn't feel like a great answer to that question. So that was kind of my one weird hesitation. I want to see what that long speed is, and I want to see him add more to his frame. I like him in zone coverage, but right now, especially with his body type and how wiry he is, I worry about him outside one-on-one opportunities against bigger guys. But again, haven't fully checked out the all 22 from this last weekend, but I'm curious to go check it out, especially in those reps against guys like Tate and Jeremiah Smith, who just have so much more mass to them. But let me know where you stand on Malik Muhammad.
Yeah, so obviously one of the games I studied last year was that Ohio State game as well. And one of the things that I came away with, and not many players genuinely get this type of role, type of grade from me, is an actual off-man coverage player, like somebody who's comfortable given that space. And I think when you're talking about the acceleration and maybe the lack of long speed, that really plays into that. And I definitely saw what you saw in that aspect. Did add some little pecs to him, a little bit more muscle on the bone, a little bit more meat. Yeah, he actually has a little bit better of a frame now, but I do agree 188 does feel a little generous. And you're seeing someone like Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, you can definitely see when you go A to B that there's going to be a little bit of a difference there. So I can definitely agree to that. I understand Malik Muhammad, to me, he's cornerback 23. I know, again, that sounds crazy, but, at the same time, you're talking about the gap between 23 and number 10 as like a 4-point gap. So if he just improves his speed a little bit, improves his frame a little bit more, that is something that can easily change these rankings. And then, again, scheme specific definitely would be a big factor for that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where, and I also think his eyes are a good weapon for his utilization. I think you get him in a quarters heavy defense. I'm thinking Elijah Ojero, or Ojero Evero, in Carolina. Like that's the type of scheme where, off cover 3 and a lot of quarters mixed in there. That could be a good, fun opportunity. And plus, they already have a number 1 corner who's going to be your man press, go get the guy at the line of scrimmage type in a JC Horn. So that's the type of situation where, like, if Malik Muhammad works out, that's the type of, I'm with you in lockstep there. I think that's the type of place for him to succeed. Let's get on to D'Angelo Ponce, dude. This is like one of the most fun to watch players for me. And like, there's something about an undersized point guard and an undersized cornerback that just like gets you fired up when you watch them. And D'Angelo Ponce like exemplifies that. He's like 5'9", 170. That's what he's listed at. I think he might be a little bit thicker than 170, but like probably not by much just because of the height. But there's outside reps of him from last year where like he's more than holding up in press coverage. Now, maybe not against like the top tier of their schedule or anything like that, but a couple of reps against like Northwestern come to mind, and it's like, okay, you know what? For 5'9", and after watching Mikey Samerstill, who was a top 45 player for me that year, I thought nickel only, but he's gonna be a damn good one. And then he moves outside and has an awesome rookie year. Who's to say Ponce couldn't do something like that? That's not what I'm drafting him for, but I do think there is some flexibility there so that you do get some added versatility. But this guy has awesome nickel corner potential, willing tackler, great click and close ability. That's in like, I wasn't a huge Maxwell Hairston guy, but the reason I was like, you know what, if he goes round 1, I get it. His click and close ability to close on a football is just awesome. And I love that in a corner. And I think Ponce definitely brings that to the table. Plus sound tackling, that competitiveness I want out of the slot. The big question is like, if you stick him outside, like what does he look like? If you give him 100 reps against Jeremiah Smith, how many does he bat away? It's probably not going to be great compared to some other corners on today's list. But outside of the fact he's a little short and he's a little slight, that's a damn good football player. He's kind of the A-tier version of what I talked about earlier with Chandler Rivers. Like Chandler Rivers is good, scrappy. I think Ponce just has a little bit more short area burst, a little bit more twitch to him, which is why he's up higher than Rivers. Where do you see Ponce?
Yeah, Ponce right now is tied at number 7 for me. My cornerback rankings, huge fan of him. I gave him the nickname Velcro because there are just these reps where, I get some Jacob Parrish vibes from him. Obviously, Parrish is a bit bigger, but we talked about it. D'Angelo Ponce plays with a physicality that he's about 190, 195, and has the athletic ability of someone who is in that 170 range. So it's a really unique build and somebody who can be contesting the catch with someone who is nearly half a foot, if not a foot taller than him. Hopefully he does not go up against tight ends. But I actually do think Mikey Samerstill is a pretty good comp for him. I actually have him listed as someone who I want on the boundary, even at that size.
Really? Okay.
I'm going to be ballsy, but I do believe that, his actual tenacity and the way he can handle a mismatch with size is something that could translate very well, because there are some of these guys who are bigger who do not handle the size nearly as well as he does. Pause. But D'Angelo Ponce is just somebody who I have a ton of undying respect for. Definitely somebody who I could see, being the exception to the rule.
And I'm a sucker for a guy who takes a step up in competition and their play takes the step up with it. Like, so you have this guy who goes from JMU, follows Signetti, goes out to Indiana, and you wouldn't have been able to tell. He looks like he belongs there from day one. It was the same thing I said about Jared Verse and why I liked him so much in that class. Different positions, but like that is just something that if you've done it, I'm going to probably be a little bit more biased in your corner. And you know what? Honestly, I don't hate the outside corner shout either. Again, we play in a day and age where it's more zone than it is man, even for your most man-heavy teams. And his instincts, his click and close ability on the outside and his eyes, I don't hate it. And it's funny. I'd be curious to hear how you think about this, but sometimes when you're a draft analyst, you're thinking about it with not one specific scheme in mind, right? I'm not Jesse Minter and the Chargers running that defense. I'm not Mike Tomlin and co running the Steelers defense. I'm just thinking about it holistically and what I think works for this player.
Right.
But subconsciously, if I were a DC, which is never going to happen, I'd probably run a lot of cover 2-4-6-8. Like that would probably be Sean McDermott cut from that cloth. That would probably be my MO. So because of that, yeah, I could see a world where Pollins kind of does make sense in that type of scheme outside. But do you ever have that come into play where you're like, you know what, I like outside zone, so like I tend to like outside zone offensive linemen, or I like zone corners because of this? Right. Do you ever feel that bias?
Yeah, you have to. I mean, not every single player is going to fit every single cut of cloth. There's going to be the specific scheme that works the best for certain players. So, yeah, I definitely agree. Even especially with corners too, they have their strengths and weaknesses.
They're saying, do you have one in the back of your mind? Do you ever like catch yourself thinking like, oh, this would be my type of corner if I ran zone, or whatever? You ever have that creep in the back of your mind, or am I a lunatic?
Oh yeah, I mean, think about it. You see a girl walk down the street and you're like, that's my type. Do you not see that when you watch a player? You're just like, that's my type. That's it. That
would fit my defense. Yeah.
Like
sure.
That's my type of corner right there. That's my type of lineman. Yeah, 100%. I mean,
I can't wait
if you fall in love.
I can't wait to get Matt on the guy looking over his shoulder meme. We're going to Photoshop your face on that. Here we go. Just got to find some players to put them in there.
See, just put Mansoor Delane and then Malik
Muhammad. Spoilers. Yeah, no, but I got you. We'll have Malik Muhammad be the girl that you're holding hands with, and then goes Mansoor Delane. Fun stuff. Let's get on to my cornerback 8, Will Lee, the third. As much as I would probably play zone coverage, this is kind of the guy who fits the opposite mold here. Long, lanky, athletic, and wants the smoke. There is no amount of violence or trash talking that will scare away Will Lee the third. And I kind of love that. It's a position where you're going to get beat, but he's the type of guy that said, all right, you got me that once, not again. And I felt the same way about Christian Gonzalez, not a one-to-one comp there, but like Gonzalez had that where you got me once, not going to happen the second time in a row. So I love that. But long physical corner, so if you're looking for an outside press specialist, Will Lee fits the bill there. Talking about solid production, 8 PBUs. I feel like he's always at the spot. A couple of the negatives, I think he can play the ball a little bit better on the sideline specifically. But over the middle of the field, I tend to find him at the catch point. But I do think there's some time, especially for 189 pounds, 6'1", he looks like he's got adequate arm length. It's like, man, turn the head around. Like, there's a little bit of Deonte Banks, which scares me. There's a little bit of the Deonte Banks there where this guy has all the physical tools, has the body type, but it's like Banks just ball would be in the air and he wouldn't know it and he wouldn't be able to contest it and, it'd become a completion, but he was in the right spot. So that's good, but he's just not making a play on it. And there's a little bit of that with Will Lee, not quite to the same extent, but where do you see Will Lee and how does he rank up for you in these corner rankings?
Yeah, I mean, I love a corner that is physical and has those long arms and has the ability to get his hand inside the passing lane. For me, I don't have Will Lee necessarily graded as high as like the top 10, but I do love a corner very similarly built to Will Lee, maybe an inch and a couple pounds heavier, who not that many people are very high on, that has very similar traits, loves that physicality. But one of the things I do love about Will Lee, and this is something that you'll just like continue to watch while you're doing just even couch like GMing, it's you see them near the ball all the time. He's not afraid of contact, and there are those corners that you'll just see them jog towards the box, and you'll see Will Lee run, and that's something that I really do like. Definitely something that teams will definitely love, especially if you're going to be vying for even a special teamer role. If all else fails, putting in that effort makes you very valuable to a 53.
One other thing I wanted to note here, another reason I liked him. This is always something I don't know why, but it always stands out to me for receivers and corners. He's a guy who can get to his top speed pretty quickly, but he also throttles down really efficiently. And especially if you're going to play man coverage, you're eventually going to have a wide receiver hit you with the comeback, curl, something along those lines. And I feel like he's one of the better man specialists in this class that can get to top speed, but also slow down and stick with that receiver just as, efficiently. So I did want to note that there. So again, if you're looking for a man coverage corner, I think Will Lee's got a lot of the goods you're looking for, as does my corner number 7. And spoiler alert, we'll show the rankings here, obviously, once we get through my top 12, but this is Alex's number 1 corner. And dude, after watching him on Saturday, I'd be hard pressed to find a solid argument against that. So these are, again, my early rankings, but Mansoor Delane's making a great case to be moved up. You're talking about NFL level foot speed too. Like his feet are fantastic, 6 foot, 190. So he's got prototypical size. I've heard maybe it's closer to 5'11", but tit for tat, it's all good. He's got the body and he's got the arm length more importantly than that. Love the hip fluidity as well. Overall, just the movement skills, and he's got good ball production to go with it. And I think LSU is going to be kind of similar to Damani Jackson, who's just outside my top 12. You saw last year he got to Bama, and this is not to besmirch USC too much. I never played college football, so they can besmirch me all they want. But you could just see there was just a different level of coaching and just like detail put into his weeks at Bama than it was at USC. I think the same can be true for Mansoor Delane. I think maybe we're already seeing that. And I thought he already had pretty good Virginia Tech tape. Last year, if he came out, I'd probably have him somewhere in the top 64. I'd be comfortable with like a second round kind of evaluation for him going into last year. And I think this year, damn, this is scary to say, he might be even better. So tell me why he's your number one cornerback. Why should everyone be jumping on the Mansoor Delane hype train?
So there's a common theme that there are players that I absolutely detest at the start of a year that I fall in love with at the end or at the beginning of the next year. Mansoor is exactly that. You would be like, oh, like I'd be comfortable in the top 64. I didn't really feel like at least halfway through the year, especially the Miami game and the Cal game as well.
The Miami game was so weird. They had him playing safety. Like that first half, he was like playing safety. And I'm like, what kind of weird shit is this? So again, I'm hoping LSU is just going a little bit more straightforward and some better coaching for my guy.
Yes, not the Cal game. Cal game was talking about the turnover-worthy plays for Cam Ward. I'm just remember it was like VT that game. But regardless, after that Miami game, I didn't feel like he was remotely in the realm of a day 2 pick for me. I was thinking of him more as like a late day 3 based on the flexibility. But the moment I saw Mansoor transfer to LSU, it wasn't something that was super analytical. Something in my gut was like, that's an LSU corner. Like, I know the movement skills. I know everything. Like, this guy to me feels like LSU. There's an edge rusher. We're not talking about those today, but he's Georgia's backup edge rusher, Elo Modozier from Army. I saw him and I'm like, that's a Georgia player. Like, there's just players you see it with. And Mansoor went to the right spot. I just want him in pretty much every coverage except off, and he's done good in off coverage even at LSU. So, he's just somebody who's a great athlete, extremely versatile, and went to a system that complemented his skill set and wanted to make him the player that he's supposed to be. So I was really happy with that.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Again, that Miami game was weird. They had him moving all around. It was just kind of like a weird one to watch. The Syracuse game, he gets a pick, but he also gives up 2 touchdowns in that one. So that one's a little hot and cold. And then Georgia Tech didn't really air it out that much last year. And then only other game I watched from him last year was Clemson. And I thought that was a fine game. Nothing really of note. But I still, the body type and the athleticism, I thought I saw, somewhere I'd be willing to take somewhere late second, early third, somewhere in there. But I'm with you. I think this year is going to be the kind of year where he goes from this day 2 prospect for a few years now, where it feels like, oh, Mansoor Delane, that name's still floating in the draft mix, to where this is the year where, especially after Saturday, first round, I think is certainly on the table for him.
Love it.
All right, let's get on to my cornerback 6, Xavier Scott, 5'11", 198, a senior and an absolute playmaker. This is probably another guy where I'd play him in the slot, but if you keep him out wide, I'm totally content with that. This guy, not only from getting his hands on the football, you see 4 interceptions, 5 PPUs, but forcing fumbles. This guy's going to be a playmaker from that standpoint. I worry a little bit about his frame, kind of like D'Angelo Ponce, Chandler Rivers. These guys are a little bit smaller, so if you're going to put him in the nickel, that amount of wear and tear, sure, you're a little concerned about that. But Scott, I say all that because he also has injury history. So again, if you're not in love with the idea of playing him in the nickel, I understand him a little bit more than those other guys. But good arm length, I think a really instinctual football player, and unreal motor. And that's part of it too for me. And everyone and their mom has used this comp, but there is like a little bit of shades of Devin Witherspoon in his game for sure. I think he's super explosive when breaking on the football as well. I think there's good click and close. My concern is just going to be the long speed and the injury history. So, I'm no doctor, so he'll be clear on my board. But unless I hear something crazy, I guess. But I am curious to see what that long speed was. And I remember during that draft cycle, God, what was that for Witherspoon? 23, I guess. 23, I think it sounds right.
Yeah, for Witherspoon?
Yeah, Witherspoon and Gonzo. Yeah. Witherspoon, there was some concerns about, what was his top end speed. And then he goes out in his pro day and runs a, 4.42. And, we'll call it a pro day boost and call it a 4.45. Dude, if I got that from Xavier Scott, call him a first rounder in my books, at least as of what I have right now. And not including what we may have on tape in 2025, 26. But tell me your thoughts on Xavier Scott. Where does he rank for you?
Yeah, he's a top 20 corner for me, and I have him as someone who could slot in as the hybrid between a slot or a boundary. So I do think that he definitely has that. But it is interesting. We talk about, oh, Mansoor might be 5'11", and it's like, I feel comfortable with him as a pure outside. I mean, hell, I talked about, D'Angelo Ponce is someone on the outside. But with Xavier Scott, whenever I see someone who is sub 6 foot, who is a primary slot that then will also kick to the boundary, it does make me think that if you are not a dominant boundary corner where your defensive coordinator is like, you are my number one going against their number one the whole time, I do have those concerns in the NFL of how you're going to be able to transition. Now, we did see with Mikey Sanders still, again, he also played a bit of that nickel, and then he's still transitioning to the boundary and doing very well. He also played some boundary, but I don't see the exact one-to-one there with Scott. I really like everything he does, but to me, I also do think that it is going to be somebody who gets me a little less excited than D'Angelo Ponce from my end, mainly because you see 5'9", 170s bodying X receivers. So right. Good player, though. Really good player.
Yeah. And again, the medical could have him be on a ton of different, ranked very differently, I should say, on a lot of different boards. So it is definitely still TBD. And I get what you're saying there, right? It's not necessarily the perfect comp, but a lot of times baseball, when you watch, if nobody watched the MLB draft, who am I kidding? If you follow the MLB draft results, you'll see a lot of shortstops and center fielders that get drafted out of high school or out of their college. And it's because at high school, especially, your best player is going to play shortstop, and your best pitcher is going to be your starting pitcher, and your best outfielder is going to play center. So those tend to be like the 3 spots that then get drafted, developed, and then you get moved around from there. So I totally hear where you're coming from, where it's like, well, if he's the guy, why isn't he outside getting the number one assignment? So I totally hear where you're coming from there. And it is something that's worth considering. That's kind of an interesting thought. CB5, we've made it. Keith Abney time. Dude, Keith Abney's a fun player. Oh, yeah. We're getting to the stretch. Actually, my next 5 corners are all juniors. So now we've kind of hit, not to be ageist here, we're getting to the young side of these rankings. But dude, Abney, again, I would probably play more zone coverage if it was my world, my defense. But dude, Keith Abney is sticky as sticky gets. And I love the man coverage upside. I think the hip fluidity, the foot speed, they're all there. And most importantly, his best games were on the biggest stage last year for Arizona State. And he did it as, a sophomore, which is just like, yes, like let me jump on this hype train as soon as humanly possible. 8 PBUs, 3 interceptions, so solid ball production there. I think the eye discipline's rock solid in zone coverage. Only a few negatives. He takes the cheese on some double moves, which, sophomore corner, I can totally see where it's that, but also like man coverage. There's just some guys who they're going to take that bait just about every time they see it. And then that was really the main thing. A couple other nitpicks, but nothing too crazy here. Like the football player, there's just some things where he's a little on the young side. So just some small refinements, but I'm really excited. I didn't get to watch his, game this last weekend. So I'm really excited to see what 2025 has in store for Keith Abney, but love the athlete, love the man coverage skills. What do you think about Abney?
Abney is tied for corner 1 for me. I think that, he's my most recent study. I think that he's unbelievable. I mean, talking about Velcro Ponds, I almost wanted to just transplant that nickname to Keith Abney. His game last year versus Tetro McMillan stood out to me for every reason that you said, both good and bad, because he bit like a mofo on that double move. It was the out and up, and he bit hard, and it ended up causing, I believe it was a touchdown. So so it's just like, obviously young guys, especially ones like him, definitely are going to feel a little bit more excited and try to, get the cheese. But that's why for me, I do not have him in a system that I think should be prioritizing any sort of off coverage. If you want to maximize him, press man all day. You can do press zone. I don't think he's bad in zone. And something I loved about him was the fact that I consistently saw him calling out how the play was developing and giving the defensive backs, whether it's the safety, whether it's the nickel, extra pointers on where they should be. So he was kind of the captain of the defense in that secondary. Maybe I'm not 100% sure if he was a captain, but he definitely acted as one. And if, you aren't one, it's good to act like one until you become one. And I absolutely love that with him.
You act for the job you want to have, not for the job you do currently have. So I think you're right. And I also even noted here, communicates in zone coverage. And that's like half the battle. Not always are you going to be in the right space, right time, but zone coverage, a big part of it is communicating and working with your teammates there too. So I love that, especially again, considering last year, he's just a sophomore. Yeah. Come from a similar cloth. I got DJ McKinney at 4. So again, I would be more of a zone heavy guy, but there is something about 3rd and 5. This is a money down. You got to have a stop. that these man coverage corners all seem to really catch my eye. And like McKinney, 180 pounds, that's got to be a number that goes up if he's going to play on the outside. But I think the arm length is there. And I think he kind of like Will Lee, but maybe not to the full extent that Will Lee wants the smoke. Like he still wants that, and he's still got that type of mentality as an outside corner. I think he's got good awareness of routes and can communicate around them in zone coverage, ideal height and weight, and then calm, cool, collected at the catch point. The big thing is just, in zone coverage, the biggest thing, he's just got to add weight. So I'm not as concerned about his play at the catch point. Other than that, man, I think there's a really good football player. And I mean, he gets to work with Dion too. So that's definitely an added plus. But he was, you talk about that double move with T-Mac and Abney. That was like a highlight I saw all the time for T-Mac. And then I come around and start scouting Abney. And I'm like, oh, don't look at that play now. Like, as much as you used to use that play all the time to hype up T-Mac, don't look at it now. It's kind of interesting to look back at all those Colorado games and how much I was watching Trav. And it's like, oh, on the other side, that other guy was really good too. So I'm a big fan of him. And I think he's in a good spot, coaching staff wise, to get that much better. And really, it's like, I've heard he's probably closer to 6 foot than he is 6'2", but like 185, 188. Meet me there. And that's an outside press corner in my books. Where do you see the player?
Yeah, I mean, DJ right now is sitting there at number 11 for me. I mean, just a really solid corner. He was, I think, at number 10 for me going into last year. I was kind of hoping that he would have been the dark horse guy to declare. Again, this is not updated for how he played this past week. He did a phenomenal job. The thing that concerns me, like you, is that weight, because he was listed 190 and now he's dropped to 180. And I didn't think speed was a problem. I don't think physicality was necessarily a problem, but some other guys who have played defensive back have like DM'd me saying like sometimes like when you don't feel healthy, you drop weight so you can be a little bit more comfortable.
Sure.
And that's amazing for college. We're not talking college right now. So, I mean, you just got to put on the weight. Hopefully, again, maybe it is just he can play really well at 180. He's done it so far. And it just ends up being something you just continue eating and getting the weight room in the NFL. And maybe Colorado's not building the mass on these players right to where he feels more comfortable being a little bit lighter. I don't know.
And in college, it's just interesting because sometimes there is, I mean, speed's important at all levels of football. Don't get me wrong, but especially in college, right? Like the speed element, I could see a world where they're prioritizing that in his game and saying, hey, you know what, 180, we can work with that. And also like, it's their, former Pac-12 school, like not to typecast here, but former Pac-12 school, so like physicality, not necessarily in their DNA there, but it is going to be curious to see like once we get to the combine, right? So if he's 180 trying to gain speed now, what does he do when we get to Indianapolis?
Right.
You would think maintain 180 to keep that speed, but if 180 is the concern, does he get up to 190? But then what does that mean for speed? So it's all really interesting, but it's also true. Like I know I've gained the wrong 10 pounds, not to say that he gained the wrong 10 pounds, but I felt like shit. Now it's just 10 pounds.
Yeah.
So sometimes for people, it's the right 10 pounds and it's just more on your knees, more on your leg, and you just don't feel the same. So it is kind of interesting. That would be something that I'll have to reach out to some SIDs out there in Colorado, see if we can set something up there. That sounds like a fun point of conversation. All right. Cornerback number 3, Avieon Terrell. And I'll be honest, I'm pretty chalk here. I like a lot of these top 3 guys for just different schemes. Avieon Terrell, like if I could get this guy on the Los Angeles Rams like tomorrow, I would love to make it happen. One, because they seemingly don't care about small corners. So like he's definitely their type. But quarters heavy, off coverage, let this guy's eyes do the work, let his athleticism work magic. And also, man, this could be another really fun nickel corner guy because against the run, this guy wants it. He wants to blow it up with the best of them. And he does it at 5'11", 180, which is remarkable, but also good punches when it comes to finding the football and jarring it loose. So playmaker from that standpoint, but just a rock solid, really smooth player. And it's kind of amazing. Of course, let's hit on it. He is, yes, the younger brother of AJ Terrell. Everyone and their mom has to note that, but yet they play so different. They play very different brands of corner. So it is kind of amazing that they are related. But of course, just in case you haven't heard that somehow, he is the younger brother of cornerback for the Falcons, AJ Terrell. My main thing is the negative column is like, I just wouldn't play press man with him. I'd like to keep him out of man coverage at all possible, opportunities, but like off man, sure, maybe there, but like zone coverage, especially let his athleticism play, let his eyes and his instincts take over. I think that's a really good scheme fit there for Avieon Terrell.
All right. Well, Avieon is also my corner 3. I love his athleticism. Yeah, there we go. We got agreement.
Yep. Nice. That takes one.
No, I love the speed that he brings. And, I do think there are some categories where, he's still developing as the coverage player, but love the feistiness. He's very similar to D'Angelo Pons, not necessarily daunted by a weight differential. Now, Trey'Dez Green decided to say, well, height still matters and I can wash you. And I'm like, you know what? That's just called physics. And sometimes if you put the ball where you can't jump, you're going to get mossed. But that is kind of the issue with him, is that he is 5'11" and might be 5'10". I mean, you don't know, but he still plays with a lot of moxie and he plays with a lot of power and a ton of speed. And that's a really good foundation to have if you are looking for someone to be that fringe corner one for you. Think about the Jair Alexanders of the world.
Yeah,
you don't always have to be like, that's kind of the comp right now.
That's the high-end comp for sure.
Yeah, the high-end comp is the Jair, but I mean, definitely great speed, great physicality. Just we'll see if the frame can translate the way it has so far in college.
And look, not to get too far into a tangent here, but I've often called Garrett Nussmeier my Tony Romo 2.0. And Romo was literally just on a podcast the other day. I can't remember what it was, but he was talking about like how throwing back shoulders to Des Bryant used to be undefeated. Mm-hmm. And on August 8th, it's 8 days. So Des Bryant was sharing a bunch of those back shoulder throws from Tony. And like watching that from Nuss, one, it's like, okay, yes, this guy is absolutely Tony Romo 2.0. But like sometimes in Avieon Terrell's defense, that route can be simply unguardable if it's timed up perfectly. And that's kind of what happened there with LSU. So do want to give him a little bit of slack there. It's just a really tough route to defend, but especially when you're 5'11", 180. Yeah, but exactly. Really good body control. Also wide receiver in high school. I always really like that for a cornerback. And I think that you see that in his play anticipation and his instincts. And again, high-end comp with Jair Alexander. I really, really like that comp because you saw that some in Jair's game where it's like, whoa, how could he anticipate that? And it's just that type of football IQ I think Terrell brings to the table. I got AJ Harris at 2, 6'1", 191. This can be a fun conversation because he's not quite as high for you. I do worry about, one, not a whole lot of ball production, but you can kind of chart that up to a lot of different things. Let's just see what happens in 25. But two, I also do worry about the long speed. Oh, God, let me see if I can pull up his track numbers from high school. But if you compare them out to like NFL 40 times, there's nothing really special there. So I do feel like long speed might be something that leaves some to be desired, to say the least. But I love the body. He flies to the football when it's, run play or a screen. He's looking to blow that up. And I like the physicality in both man and zone. So I all in all think there's a rock solid basis for this player. And I think he does a lot of things at a B+ level. And some things with his like tenacity specifically against screens, I think that kind of gives him a leg up. And, maybe we'll call that an A- for his ability to fit the run and willingness to tackle. So I like the player. I think he does a lot of things really well. And I'm going to try to find those track times. But let me hear your thoughts on AJ Harris.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's just the better version of what we talked about earlier with Dalen Everett. I mean, just really, for me, he did not score poorly in any category at all. Like, he's just really rock solid across the board. And, for me, he is a day 2 pick, which I assume if he's a corner 2 for you, he's a fringe 1, early 2. Yeah. Like, to me, day 2 pick. So we're not that far off, even though he's right now, like, sitting in there, definitely in my top 20. But, I think realistically, probably around 12 for me at the moment. But AJ Harris, just a really solid build. I do think that, some of his tenacity actually can work well if he wants to be a nickel back and be someone who can float around. I don't mind it. And Penn State makes their players extremely versatile, so I love it. But there is one little aspect to AJ Harris I was not a huge fan of. He has this Malachi Moore-ness to him where his big plays he lets up are just big plays. Like when he messes up, it does feel, it's like, ooh, like I want you to be able to clean up your own mistakes. It does feel like sometimes you got to keep a second eye posted on him just in case something happens. But 90% of the time, this guy is extremely reliable. To me, it is just that like 10% that got me a little bit worried.
And you took the words out of my mouth. Everett was kind of like the B tier version of what I see AJ Harris as. And I will also say, you see that one interception, he got the pick. So like, I don't want to say you should take it away from him, but it was just a gimme pick. Like it was just an overthrow of overthrows and like one of the easiest plays you can see a corner make. So it's one of those things where it is interesting when you see that from a guy where like the bad plays are borderline disastrous to just categorically disastrous. And then like okay, got a pick. And it's like, oh, well,
right.
I might have been able to come away with that one. So It is always interesting to kind of compare those two things. But overall, really like AJ Harris, like him an on, off, man zone. I think he brings a lot of versatility there. And then, looking at these track numbers, it would equate out. Now, granted, he was a senior in high school when he did this. So like, a lot's happened since 2021. But it would break out to basically like like mid 4.5s, 40. So
that's right on the money.
not great, not great. But especially considering like body type, he makes me think a little bit about like Surtain, but Surtain ran a 4.42. So like that's not in the cards, I don't think, for Harris. But also it's the Penn State program. So if there's anybody to take a guy from high school who's running like 4.55 and make him into like low 4.4s, that's the freaking program. I don't know how they do it. What do they put in the water there?
It is 32 Beat Writers season, August, when they can make you a lot of money, especially on a platform like Fast Draft. Doesn't have hundreds of best ball bro killers. So when there's an injury and you hear about it through 32 Beat Writers, you can run to the Fast Draft app and jump into a Flex 4 game. Just draft any 6 Flex players. Top 4 enter your lineup every week. Or the Rabbit, 15-round best ball. Get your quarterback wide receiver stacks, get your running back sleepers. And if you follow 32 Beat Writers, you can jump into these draft rooms and be like, oh my God, I'm avoiding this guy at all costs, and I'm gobbling up all of this other running back before the larger public is fully aware, has fully digested the ramifications of the information that 32 Beat Writers is sharing. So go get Fast Draft, type in that code 32BW. 32BW is the code. Get you a $50 deposit match on Fast Draft. Now let's go start drafting faster.
Then my CB1, Jermod McCoy. And there's a sizable jump when it comes to like where these guys are going to be on my big board. Jermod McCoy, let me double check. I've just started to kind of put together my big board, but yeah, McCoy as of now, player 7. I'm a Jermod McCoy guy. So I know you're a little bit lower than him on him. And I think this can be a great discussion here because and this is totally fine. This is part of why I like talking football with you, is because you do the work. And as much as people want to, oh, well, you're an idiot for not having this and being consensus, I think it's cool that you don't do that all the time. You don't feel the need to do that all the time, including this instance here with Jermod McCoy. For me, though, I do fall into consensus, so you can call me a bozo. But former all-state baseball player, not all-state, but I always have to put that down. I always like when I see that, especially at receiver and corner, though, because I do think that type of football to ball tracking in general does translate over a little bit. I think he's great, really sticky on short and intermediate routes, great click and close ability. Also has the long speed. Game to watch to me was the Alabama game. Not one to watch if you're a Bama fan or a Jalen Milroe fan, but I thought he did a tremendous job against Ryan Williams. Now, granted, I also think 193 is probably a little bit generous on the weight. I could see a world where he's a little bit lighter than that. And Ryan Williams is, to me, someone who struggles with guys who are bigger than him. And like McCoy's just a little bit bigger than him, at least just when you watch them on tape. I had to look up the official weights to confirm that. But like Ryan Williams is pretty slight. So I wonder if that's part of it too. It'd be interesting to see, like, let me see if I can does Tennessee play Auburn this year? / do I have that game from last year? I'll look and find that up real quick. But like him versus Cam Coleman would be a fun battle. Just similar class, same class as Ryan Williams, but a guy who has that long speed, but more to his mass, more to his frame than Ryan Williams does. Anyways, tangent aside, I think he uses the sideline to his advantage really, really well to squeeze receivers. I love the first step. And again, that paired with his long speed, more than enough there. I think this is a press man specialist who also has the athleticism to be a weapon in zone coverage. That's just going to come down to his eyes. And I will say I really like the man coverage stuff. I want to see a little bit more of what he looks like in zone. And then the bad is he tore his ACL in January, and that freaking sucks. So that's a massive bummer. But let me hear why you have Jermod McCoy, not CB1. And furthermore, he's your 12, right?
Number 10.
Number 10. Okay, so tell me why McCoy's 10 and not number 1. Tell me why.
I mean, injury definitely ended up affecting it. But the thing that gets to me the most, and something that I apply for all the corners I look at, how do you defend drag routes? Because you're already going to be behind the ball unless you're like stuck hip to hip. And I saw a lot of separation that was not regained on drags that made me a little bit worried. Now, I think in the right situation where he's impressed, maybe some off coverage as well, because I saw him versus Jeremiah Smith. He was, I believe they were running quarters, maybe cover 3, but he just ended up defending it perfectly. He was an off coverage and ended up defending pretty much a goal line shot beautifully. And that's exactly his game. If you want to go up against someone who's physical, you think about an AJ Brown. You can't have, unfortunately, no disrespect to Avieon Terrell, who's higher on my board, but you can't have Avieon Terrell trying to go pound for pound versus AJ Brown. You need somebody who's going to be a press specialist. And that's Jermod's the best in the class at that. And that's usually my type of corner. But when I do get a little bit worried seeing, I think, some underdeveloped zone ability, and then on top of that, like not regaining the ground that you lose on those drag routes, it does make me a bit concerned. Now, he does pass the eye test. He has those big flashy plays, almost the opposite of AJ Harris, where I think the big splash is more exciting with Jermod. AJ Harris, the consistency is a little bit more intriguing. So I understand why both of them are consensus 1-2, but for me, there are some certain categories that I prefer that, maybe just ended up having the board reshuffled a little bit differently.
And again, I respect that beyond all belief, right? Like I remember watching some of your videos last year, and I'm trying to think of the edge rusher you had as number 3 player on your board, whose name now, of course, escapes me. Braden Swinton. And before that, the year before that, it was Isaiah McGuire, right? Yep. And this year it's UCF, Malachi Lawrence.
There you go. I have to miss on one edge at the top.
No. It's not a miss. And the thing is, there's a lot of people in this community, and like I have to be careful with saying this because there's a lot of draft analysts I want to work with, and who knows how they got their start. And I'm also not trying to bash anybody who's trying to get into this. There's a lot of people who would just, I saw this on X, so that's how I feel. Or I saw that one highlight that one time, so he's my CB1. Or most people think this, so he's my CB1. And it's like, okay, well, tell me about your process. Did you watch it? What games? Let's get into the nitty gritty of it. And that's never been the case with you. So whether it's your high man on Malachi Lawrence and you think he's the 3rd best player in this class, you did the work. I know you watched that film and you came to that conclusion because that's your feeling. It's not, okay, well, someone told me this, or, oh, this guy I look up to, or groupthink, whatever. So I think it's cool that you're breaking consensus. And we also have a full year ahead of us.
Yes, we do.
Who knows what's about to happen? Like Jermod McCoy, who knows? Maybe he has a setback and doesn't come out this year. And we might be wasting our time. So anyways, long tangent aside, just want to give you some flowers there and say thank you for all the work that you do. But let's go ahead and recap my top 12. And let's talk about the names on your list that weren't on mine. All right, so real quick, here's my 12 through 1. We already talked about all these players. So, man, Alex, where should we start? Let's start with Damani Jackson. Let's just go from bottom up towards the top guys that you had on your rankings that I didn't. And some of that might just be I'm a little bit lower in the guy, or it might just be like in Preston Hodge case, I didn't actually end up watching. Right. I like to watch at least 4 games for every guy if I possibly can. 3, right. I feel like I get enough of an idea depending on how many snaps are in a game. 3 I could do, but 4 is kind of like the basis of my sample size. I'm a big data geek, so the bigger the sample, the better. The bigger the N, I'm happier. But let's talk about Damani Jackson because he really is a fun prospect. And let me double check. I think he's my 14, just behind Jeremiah Matthews, and that was because Matthews looked really good watching live the other day. So I haven't done the full tape study on Matthews, but talk to me a little bit about Damani Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, Jackson's somebody who was a hyper athlete, primary man coverage guy at USC, and definitely popped off in that aspect. And then ended up going to a Bama squad that did not have a strong identity and struggled early. And something I love to look for in the majority of my players, one of the reasons I fell in love with Joey Porter Jr. is how do you develop? Some guys can do it over a year. Some guys can do it mid-game. For me, that's why I love Joey Porter, is because mid-game versus Purdue when he was getting destroyed by Charlie Jones, ended up making the game-winning play on Charlie Jones with a route he got cooked on like 1,000 times. But for Damani, over the year, he just got better and better and better. I love seeing that, and I want to continue seeing that trend. But I saw the athletic upside and the overall ceiling when he was at USC. I thought that he really took a step back early on, but regained his footing, showing that maybe it was more so uncomfortability, new system. Obviously, right now we're questioning how strong that whole entire program is at the moment. Yeah. But if you see somebody, especially currently with the way that we're viewing that program, get better and better, that is something that is even more of something I want to tip my cap to. So just overall, somebody who I think is a pretty damn balanced corner. I mean, I have him like really solid in the majority of categories. And then again, has that deep speed that you are kind of looking for.
Yeah. And former 5-star recruit. And he was also a guy who got hurt towards the end of high school. And I did wonder how much that might have continued into, especially that first year at USC, where it's like, oh man, this guy with all this recruiting hype, like there's not a whole lot of high school recruits, especially a couple of years ago before I really got into the draft weeds, where it's like, oh, okay, like why do I need to know about this high schooler? But like that was a name I recognized, and I was like, oh, okay, doesn't really look like it. But yeah, like I said earlier in the episode, like I thought last year sizable steps in the right direction. That's why he was just outside this top 12. Only allowed 40 plus yards 3 games last year. And like if you told me that 2 years ago when he was struggling at USC, I'd be like, okay, cool. How high in the first round we mocking him? Not quite there, but I do think I'm with you. I think you're already seeing steps in the right direction for his game. Who's the next one? DJ Harvey. Let's talk about DJ Harvey.
Have you studied him?
No, I do not have 4 games.
Oh, he is fun. So, I mean, he's going into
You love your USC corners.
Dude. Well, I mean, he's from San Jose State.
Jalen Smith, too.
Yeah, so Jalen Smith was an absolute dog for me, someone who I absolutely love, and I think he's going to do great for the Houston Texans. So, for me, when looking at DJ Harvey, first off, that was the initial impression I got. before I totally processed that he was transferring, because at the time I initially saw him on PFF's mock draft site and it had the San Jose State logo. So it's like, initially I'm like, okay, this guy's San Jose State. I go and I watch some San Jose State. And I'm like, I really like this guy. He's extremely twitchy, very physical, probably going to be someone who needs to be in the slot, 5'10", 186 pounds, but somebody who has, again, similar to what we talked about, Avieon Terrell, D'Angelo Pons, they play bigger than their normal size. Sure. And I really like that about those type of players. And then DJ goes to USC, where it's the perfect system for that type of player. See a trend? It's like, if I see something that makes sense to me, I think he's going to end up thriving there. Now, if he doesn't, I actually had Jalen Smith graded pretty high, much more heavily than he did. Then definitely something that, we can end up trying to understand the exact reason why he didn't translate, but it feels like a hand in glove fit.
All right. He did play 19 snaps this last weekend, too. So we got a little bit of something, I guess, Montana State, I think is who they played?
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. MO State.
Well, actually, Montana State, I thought that was Oregon.
So MO State, Oregon. Missouri State? I don't know. They played most states.
It's not a school we need to we do not need to care about that school. But
Montez Williams, let's get on to him. A stud in college football. So, like, great corner from that standpoint. So he passes the video game test. So, but I have not watched 4 games with Williams, so I don't have a report on him either.
Yeah, so John Tez, to me, he is the creme de la creme of a zone nickel corner. I don't think he has to play in the nickel. I think he can play boundary, but 5'11", 200 is just such a unique frame. I don't think he's like the best athlete on planet Earth, but the processing of understanding how routes are developing and being able to understand where the quarterback is in their progression. I mean, apart from, I don't really know how many more corners I have graded higher than him in zone coverage. I think he's tied for the top. There's just not really anybody who really competes at that consistent level of understanding how to be able to defend against the development of the play. You'll see him literally bail his concept or bail his responsibility and go and defend where he's seeing other defenders failing. So someone who I have a lot of respect for. I think Iowa's playing Iowa State this week. So we're going to see it's a big battle, especially not the biggest receivers, but again, when it's one of those games that really do matter and you see these guys show up the most.
I want to see when these guys show up in rivalry games. Iowa State, sign me up for that. And I will say, like, Darian Porter, and he was a receiver turned corner, so this probably is part of it, but like he had great zone instincts. So hearing you say that about Williams is making me think, okay, no, that's an Iowa State thing. That's them, how they coach these guys up. So he might be top of the next to watch list right here, John Tez Williams.
He's fun.
And then we got Davison Igbinosun. He's right now 16. I have Christian Gray at 15, but those two right now, they're both kind of irritating to me for different reasons, but I'm a Notre Dame fan. So don't get me down the Christian Gray route, but let's talk a little bit about Davison Igbinosun.
Yeah. He's the master of penalties. That's
grab at the top of the routes.
Yeah. He is an extremely grabby corner. So this is heavy on projection, but the thing is, what's so irritating, I'm sure you felt this the same way. Why are you grabbing? Because his actual instincts, he's a 5-star from New Jersey. That place breeds dogs. Like, he is just built like a monster. And I think he's up there with Jermod McCoy as the most physically endurant. Like, it's impossible to deal with the physicality.
Yeah, 6'2", 192. Yeah.
Yep. That's what I was talking about earlier. Who we were talking about somebody I was saying it's pretty close in the weight range as well, but very, very physical.
Maybe. Yeah. Maybe
I don't know. But we were talking about somebody, but regardless, like, great frame, obviously 5-star recruit, top of his class. Just somebody who has all the makings of a top end player. And I actually really like how he processes in zone for somebody who is very, I don't want to say insecure, but for a lack of a better term, insecure in man coverage. Because I think he's better than he is, but it's more of a mental thing. He's someone who processes the game extremely well. He loves contact. And I think with somebody, you think about Brian Flores, that's somebody who can appreciate and utilize that physicality. I'm game. So someone who I believe in the ceiling.
Yeah. And the thing that you hit on there, he gets grabby, but he's always there. Yeah. It's not like he's grabbing the back of a jersey because he's 2 steps behind the guy and it's going to be a touchdown if he doesn't hold the jersey.
Right.
It's almost like a tick. It's like a crutch that he just hasn't been able to get over. So it's really weird. I am curious if we can get a 3 cone out of him. To me, he looks a little high-waisted, so I wonder about the hip fluidity there.
Sure.
If he has like a solid 3 cone, though, I can put that word to bed. But I think there's a lot to work with there. He's just got to cut down on the penalties because you're right. Long speed, size, physicality, arm length, all those traits are there.
Yeah, I was checking my change of direction grade on him, and it was definitely something I was a bit more concerned about too. Him and Jontez, both guys, I would really love to see how their 3-cone turns out. I think that's another reason why I think Jontez is more zone specific.
Yeah, but I mean, to that point though, on the other side of the coin, Igbenogson, like let him play man press and like jam a guy to the line of scrimmage, and let's not worry about what those hips do because he's taking care of that. So
absolutely.
All right, last guy I think we have to talk about, Preston Hodge from Colorado. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I was honestly unbelievably shocked when I ended up falling in love with Preston Hodge last year. So I have a big Colorado fan who his name's Keegan. He's from like Sweden. And I'm like, all right, cool. This guy's never played football. Ends up talking to me about this guy, Preston Hodge. And I'm like, he kept pestering me. Literally 90 days, every single video said, telling you to watch Preston Hodge. I'm like, you know what? I can't get this to triple digits. Let's go and watch him. And he's just so fun. Someone who can play nickel and the boundary. He kind of got roasted versus Kansas State where he ended up having to substitute in due to injury of some other corners. I think it might have been Trapp that game, but ended up being roasted by like one of my favorite players in college right now, Jace Brown, on essentially just pretty much a double move. But, he's somebody that you still feel very comfortable with, even when he makes mistakes, making up for his mistakes, cleaning up, similar to what we were talking about, is what makes me a little worried about AJ Harris. But in the nickel, he's extremely fluid, understands, again, that similar processing of the game, and is extremely physical versus the run. So you're adding in that versatility as the more run defending style of nickelback with the processing of a higher end actual corner. And again, you're with Deion Sanders. Do you think he's going to allow a corner to start every single game for his team and not be good? No. I mean, especially in the nickel, that's an extremely valuable position where you don't necessarily hear about the linebackers out of Colorado. This is going to be where you start seeing pretty much him being in that star role where you can end up seeing a little bit more of the run defense abilities and making up for where they lack.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great shout out. So just another one of these guys I need to get my eyes on, watching all these other corners from Colorado that aren't Preston Hodge. But yeah, 2 of the last years, just as a quick, backing up to your point, 2 of the last 3 years, he's had a 78.8 tackling grade from PFF. Not that PFF is necessarily the end all be all, but that is a pretty good snapshot and a quick look at like what this guy brings to the table. And at 6 foot, 200 pounds, yeah, he's almost kind of a little taller than Brian Branch, but I think Branch was right around that 200-pound mark. It's kind of that body type where it's like, ooh, do a lot of different things, move this guy around the field. So I like the shout. Hodge is going to be one of the next guys I have to add to my watch list right there. Alex, man, this has been a blast. I want to say thank you so much for joining us. I know last week I threw you for a whole run around with offensive line rankings. That was all my bad for scheduling, but so glad to get you on the show, man, and I'm hoping we have you on more often.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. It's always good to talk ball.
Absolutely, man. Where can the people find you? What are some of the major projects you're working on right now?
Yeah, Hail Mary Sports over on Twitter as well as YouTube. You can feel free to follow me over on Instagram as well if you want to see the more personal side of things. But right now, just like churning out some mock drafts, making sure that we see and watch how these players develop, the roles that they take on. Mekhi Hughes, get more than 1 carry, please. But I mean, we get to just, for the ups and the downs, it's exciting. Being able to study every single game, every single week is super fun. And, just kind of just enjoying the ride right now.
Yeah, so you have a stock update video coming out. Definitely encourage that. I'm going to be doing some similar things here on this channel. So if you like this type of content, definitely go give Alex some views and some likes and comments on his videos, as well as, of course, checking out everything we have bringing to the table here at 32. But yeah, Mekhi Hughes, 1 carry. Jeremiah Love with like 4 carries in the first half. What's the deal, guys? What are we doing? Don't even God, that Notre Dame game. I'm freaking fired up, man. I don't even But anyways, man, I can't thank you enough, and I'm hoping to have you on throughout more of this draft cycle. So thank you again to Alex. Thank you, everyone who checking out this video. Let me hear your cornerback rankings down below. Who's too high? Who's too low? Who'd we leave off? Add some more names to my watch list, and I'll make it happen. So leave those thoughts down below. And until next time, we are signing off.